Here we go.
All right, back in the game. Wayne, can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you. I can see you. Got the mustache looking right.
Hey, listen, how come this is the first time you've come on the chat with me live, and it's got to be about something like this?
Oh, you know, people only like drama, so you know, I was reserving myself and saving it for this moment, for the frenzy.
Here we go. Here we go. Well, let me do this first. Just ask Char. She's here all the time. She always says hello, brings friends, and I really appreciate having her around. Hello, Char.
Hey, Char.
So, for those of you who don't know, friends, I really appreciate this is my cousin Wayne. Wayne, well, tell him where you live right now. What city and what area?
So right now I'm here in the good old U.S. of A., as they say. I'm in New York City. More specifically, I'm in Harlem. So right now I'm reporting live from Harlem, New York.
Harlem, New York. The fabled Harlem, New York.
Oh, yes, yes. Very fabled. I'm actually now in a neighborhood they call Soha. It's been renamed. Gentrification's great, isn't it?
Oh, Soha, isn't that Southern Harlem where they're repackaging and reselling?
Oh, yes, yes. And the prices go up each time they repackage it. Trust me.
It's heartless out there. Heartless.
Yeah, man. You know how it goes.
Well, you know what? We're gonna have to have a chat on gentrification another day.
With it,
all those prices might drop in view of what's going on right now.
Oh yeah, everything's going down. It seems, right?
Normally, I like to lead the discussions I have, but I want to do this. I want to say, tell me what you feel and see differently today than you did last month this time.
Well,
give us details.
Sure, man. You know, New York City is a huge metropolis. We have millions of people coming in and out of the city each day. I'm based in Manhattan. There's obviously 5 boroughs. Manhattan's the greatest one, in my opinion. But compared to last week and any normal routine day here in New York, there's been some people would say it's a virtual ghost town. I actually work in the epicenter of the city down by Times Square, and I've definitely noticed my morning commute. I do take the subway or the metro, as some people will call it. There has been seats available for me. There has been less people I've noticed throughout the city. Even everyone from cab drivers have been telling me that, you know, that the population seems to be down. I guess everyone's in their house being quarantined or self-quarantining. Some people are now working remotely. So I've visibly noticed even the watering holes and some other locations that I may frequent off and on that there's definitely been less folks about.
So you just see, oh, by the way, hey, what's up, Jeff? Jeff is in the DWV. I think that's Dallas, Washington, Virginia. I always forget with all these acronyms. I can never remember them all.
I know DMV, but the W one's throwing me off a bit.
Oh wait, no, he corrected it. He's in the DMV.
DC, Maryland, Virginia. He's in the place to be.
So when you see people that are not there, what have your friends been telling you they've been doing? Are they self-quarantining? Are they doing the whole no social contact thing? Are they talking about, are they doing it to protect other people, doing it to protect themselves? Have you guys started? I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil, so I can give you a little bit of a perspective on a totally different country and how they're handling it. But have you guys had the whole cancellation of any events?
Oh man, events are being canceled left and right, Wateef. Everything from people's meetings at work. Some offices have implemented a policy where there's no more than 5 people in a meeting room, in a conference room. Some implementations have been no more than 25 people in an office setting. So you're definitely seeing at people's workplace. Some of my friends, they're not necessarily self-quarantining to quote unquote contaminated, but a lot of them are working remotely right now. As far as closures are going, as I mentioned before, mass transit is still running, but there have been some significant closures in certain live concert venues. Restaurants and things of that nature are still open. On my end, I work for a large healthcare labor union. We still, as of Friday, are still required to come into work, but there are some closures with private schools, Catholic schools. Right now, the big what if, or the big question is, if our Mayor Bill de Blasio, who some people may know, who ran briefly for president, has not closed New York City public schools. So we have probably the largest public school system population-wise in the whole nation. So everyone is on pins and needles waiting to see if kids are going to be held at home in a quarantine, or not necessarily a quarantine, but if schools are going to be canceled, and if they're going to be remotely accessing some type of online platform for their education.
Wow. Well, let me do this. Hold on a second, because as they like to say, Google is your friend.
Right.
Let's check this out. New York City Department of Education. The New York City Department of Education is the department of the government of New York City that manages the city's public school system. The city school district of the city of New York is the largest school system in the United States, with over 1.1 million students taught in more than 1,800 schools.
Well,
Damn.
I like what you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like what you did right there, because you fact checked me on the spot. I did say it was the largest public school system, and luckily I was correct on that one. I didn't lose to LA or Chicago or some other major metropolis. So I'm glad you did that, because one of the things that is I think prevalent right now, not just in New York, but just globally, is misinformation. And I think that is just as dangerous. I mean, obviously it doesn't take over your body, but it puts everyone in a state of panic. And what you're seeing right now, what I'm encountering with some of my friends who are here, is a state of panic and this distribution of semi-factual false information. I really think that people need to fact check. They need to not read every source that's out there. Right now, the rumor, and I'm not sure because I'm not privy to the info, the rumor that is going around is that New York City is shutting down in 8 days or in a week's time. And you ask someone, well, do you work for a city agency? Are you plugged into the mayor's office? Are you plugged into the hospital networks? And they say, well, I have a friend who works in the government. And those are the type of things that add to the chaos and to the frenzy. So you're getting a lot of misinformation on top of a lot of people buying toilet paper.
Okay, so let me back up for a second.
There we go.
Brother Jeff Johnson said his church service.
Hey, Jeff.
I've read about that. I wonder how a lot of religious institutions are going to deal with this, because, wow, yeah. I mean, I hadn't thought about that. Church services of all religions, faiths, and denominations are exactly in the same situation about gathering together.
Yeah, my church is based in Harlem, and it's in walking distance from my house. However, we are on a 2-week hiatus as of now. We just were notified by our pastor via email that we will be conducting services on Zoom. So we still will have service if one wants to, if they want to join in. But as far as all of us coming together, the whole social distancing, that's the key word or the hashtag these days. The social distancing is in effect. I lean into humor, so I joke and say that everybody wants to meet Jesus. Everybody loves Jesus, but nobody wants to meet him. So,
Wow. Oh, BK from the Rockies, good friend of the show, good friend of the team. He always says like, share, subscribe. I appreciate that, and I forgot to say it earlier. Everybody who's watching this, no matter when you're watching this, make sure you click the subscribe button and the bell if you can, and the thumbs up. I've been around long enough to remember all you had to do was click subscribe. But for now, click subscribe if you do nothing else, and share this somewhere on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't really care where, because this is how we've grown. We've been able to grow and meet a lot of interesting people, because we talk about, and Wayne, you know this, we talk about three things here. I talk a lot about world travel, not just Brazil, where I live. I've lived in 15 countries, and my friends have lived in a bunch more. I do a lot of talking about global issues and events with my friends from all over the world, kind of the way we're doing now. The last thing we talk about, which is my favorite subject, we talk about money. We talk about everything from savings, debt, to cryptocurrency, to how I was able to semi-retire at 37. And now we're breaking into really a fourth territory. We're doing a lot of health talk, a lot of exercise talk. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm really appreciative of all the people who have helped me. We got an update from Jeff. Federal government is implementing a mandatory telework in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. So live and direct. I mean, it's evolving. It's changing. There's new information each second. So it's key. And I stress to everyone to pay close attention. Try not to utilize social media and memes to get your information, but try to find a reliable source. Specifically, you can just log into your local governments and municipalities and see what they're reporting on, opposed to a friend of a friend of a friend.
Wow. Let me do this. Jeff, do you want a join link? If you want a join link, Jeff, I know you're a reputable source, and I'll let you come up if you want to come up to the big house. Shaw is always welcome. But what is this doing? I mean, here's the thing about Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Brazil in general. I had a conversation the other night with a dear friend, Suzette. Now, Suzette, and for those who don't know, I'm going to show you the link if you want to go to that. The thing about Suzette is she's a healthcare professional. Right here, coronavirus Brazil. She's a healthcare professional. Works in hospitals, and she gave me some insight. She gave us some insight. And I hope everybody goes and checks out live coronavirus Brazil, because Suzette had a lot of things to say. But Brazil has something that I spoke on earlier. We have medical, just open healthcare, unlike private healthcare that we have in the United States. Here, when you believe that you have a cough, when you believe you have a flu, you don't have to worry about going in whether or not you have to take a copay. People can just go to the doctor ahead of time here, or if you want to go to a private clinic, it's affordable for working class people. So it's an awkward situation to be in when you realize the United States and the inadequacies of our healthcare system are really being exposed. Because think about all those people that thought, maybe I'm getting sick, but I'm just going to take some Vicks Vapor Rub and
don't give away the secrets.
Vicks Vapor Rub, and hopefully it'll go away. Now you have a situation where those people who may have had a situation that they could have plucked, nipped in the bud early, now they're just full-blown sick. Right. Furthermore, they've been handing it to other people.
Right.
Now we are where we are.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. I'm one of the lucky ones, shall we say, that has no copays. I have superb insurance via my employer. Unfortunately, we can't say the same for everyone else. There are a lot of people who are working and quote unquote paycheck to paycheck that don't have that security. There's people right now who are being told or have been told that they have to go home and they're not receiving pay. There are some legislation that's being put in place. I'm not fully versed on it yet, but I know that they're trying to work with legislation to make sure that people are getting this paid sick leave, at least for up to a couple weeks. So, this thing is a nuisance at minimum, but a huge chaos at max. So there's a lot of people that are not, that are really in the dark right now, just because they're not sure where the healthcare side of things are going to kick in.
Wow. That's, hold on a second. We just got, you're giving me, I don't know, it's weird. I keep hearing myself in your microphone. Speaking of church services, in Brazil, a church promised protection against coronavirus, but here's the punchline. They're being investigated by the police. Thank goodness.
Yeah, because, listen, I'm a man of faith. You believe, but I also believe that I'm instilled with wisdom from a higher power also. So if you're misguiding folks in a time like this, then the authorities should probably step in, for the betterment of everyone that's out there.
Zero the infinite. Hey, you know what? Thanks for showing up. I appreciate you being here. Everybody counts. Looks like we just got somebody who beamed up.
Hey, what up, fam? This is Jeff Johnson, live from the DMV, just relaxing in Crofton, Maryland. And yeah, things I hear are similar to New York. I went to the gym this morning and there was literally no one there. I saw a lot of people just wiping down equipment, hand sanitizer. A lot of the Asian restaurants that are normally crowded with, like sushi and hibachi, empty. Took my daughters up there. We was pretty much in and out, probably about 45 minutes. So this is costing a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's going to be opportunities maybe for some companies that are making the hand sanitizer and making these products, but it's costing a lot of money. And I think some people are going to reap opportunities, but it's going to be very little. Let's just be realistic. Always follow the money. That being said, just so that I know is true, there is going to be a ripple effect unless the government gets control of this, and that's just what it is.
Let me back up for a second. Earlier, you said the federal government is implementing mandatory telework in D.C. Without giving away anything confidential, can you tell us where your authority comes from for the information that you have?
I'll meet with the government maybe like once a week. The problem is a lot of the buildings that are in Washington, D.C. are older buildings, and they don't have the proper filtration or proper ventilation system. So if something happens, that building will have to be sanitized, and that would take time, and that would cause more problems. The company I work for actually said they want us to telework 3 or 4 times a week. Eventually, we might be teleworking mandatory until this happens. No one wants to take the liability. It's like with the anthrax, how we let that, those postal workers got, die from that. They're trying to get ahead of it.
For those of you who don't remember it, and I'll pull this up, there was an anthrax attack, would we say, in 2001?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The anthrax attacks in 2001 were a series. Hold on, let's do that again. And by the way, people, I know that not everything we read on the internet is true. I'm just trying to give some context. When I fact check people, especially the people that I'm friends with and that I know and love, like Cousin Wayne, it's not confrontation sake. It's to tell everybody, don't trust anybody. Don't even trust what you read. This is a world we live in now where you've got to balance what you read with who you know who gave you that information. The 2001 anthrax attacks, also known as Amerithrax from its FBI case name, occurred in the United States over the course of several weeks, beginning September 18th, 2001, 1 week after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Let that context sink in. Let that context sink in. And there's a timeline how the anthrax terror unfolded on NPR. NPR is a place that I trust more than I trust most people.
Yeah, Kojo Nami. Yeah.
7 days after the terrorist attacks in 2001, anonymous letters laced with deadly anthrax spores began arriving at media companies, congressional offices, and over the ensuing months, 5 people died and 17 were infected after exposure. That reminded me of the Unabomber.
Unabomber. Yes.
Yes.
About how he used the postal system, a system which, by the way, I can tell you, I've been all over the world. I've been back and forth. I've been there, over and over again. I can tell you, our postal service is one of the unsung heroes. The fact that we can reliably get a box of cookies from me and my cousin, reliably. I mean, if 1 million boxes get sent, 99.99% of them are going to get there.
Right.
That's unusual. And for us to lose something like that, my goodness.
Right.
My goodness. So where you are in New York and where you are in the DMV, you're feeling the same heat. You're in the same situations where everybody's just pulling away. Have you noticed any social anxiety? Have you noticed any, and I hate it when any group of people has to deal with this. I've been reading about attacks towards Asian-looking people, Asians in general.
That was in Sao Paulo airport. Oh my goodness. When I got stuck.
Are we going to see what happens to Black people every day? I have compassion, right? This happens to us every day. Now has it spread to people who were considered the model minority in the past? Now we're seeing the true face of racism against people who are simply Asian now. I lived in China. I lived in Japan for many years. Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand, Tokyo, Japan, Shanghai, China. These are places I spent years of my life in. I've been there, and I can tell you, there are a lot of them in the United States.
That is correct.
Are you seeing that?
As far as the social anxieties, I was on my way to work, and my 6-year-old daughter coughed 3 times, and the school called me, and I had to go pick her up. And it was maybe 10 or 15 kids that their parents had to pick them up, and I had to take her to daycare. So it's getting very intense, very intense. A lot of hysteria, a lot of paranoia. This is real. This is real. I don't have no other way to, I'm not sugarcoating it.
Yeah, I'm seeing. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm seeing the same thing here in New York. Obviously, we have a very, very huge Chinatown based in Manhattan and also some of the outer boroughs. Speaking from Manhattan, Chinatown, from what I've been told and from actual Chinese sources that I work with, that it's a virtual ghost town. And people are obviously afraid to go down there. And from there, you get ignorant reactions from folks. There's a video that went viral on our subway system where this guy is, you may have seen it, this guy is spraying Febreze of all things. I don't know why Febreze, but ignorance is bliss. But he's spraying Febreze at a Asian man. I can't even say a Chinese man because I wouldn't know. But so you definitely have that backlash towards a specific ethnic group, of course, and to Jeff's point, in the minute you sniffle, cough, sneeze, people are looking at you as if if you are patient zero.
Yeah, and 9/11 was proof.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. People aren't up on their ethnicity, and you get the gang mentality, and it spirals out of control. So definitely there's tons of social anxieties, some warranted, some in my opinion not necessary, but in time of panic, it's all utter chaos.
At times of panic and chaos, what I'm going to do is after this, I think on my Patreon site, I'm going to have to talk to people about being a prepper and bugging in, meaning what did you already have right now so that you're not in this situation, because I'm fortunate here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, we haven't had any craziness with shopping sprees or people, wanting to buy 100 of this and 100 of that. I can just tell you, and here's my Patreon. I've been a prepper for many, many years. Every country I've been to, every city I've lived in, a lot of people call me when all of a sudden they don't know how to deal with, I can't go outside. Or here in Brazil, we had a trucker strike, which it's not a zombie outbreak, and it's certainly not anything like what we're dealing with now with the COVID-19 virus. But you know what it is? It's a situation where people found out meat comes on trucks. When the butcher runs out of chicken and beef, it doesn't grow on a tree. If you don't already have something like that prepped for yourself, alternatives or a deep freezer, just things that come in a truck that you may want to have in your house so that you're not panicking, now all of a sudden they want to call Wateef and say, hey, what should I do?
Wateef, come save the day. Put the cape on.
Yeah, put that Band-Aid on. And for me, there's something that I did with Brother Craig. I'll show you guys this one if you're interested in looking at it. Where is it? Called Storm Prepper, Surviving a Natural Disaster. We talked about having a bug-out bag, like a bag you can pick up and take with you and what should be in. But tonight what I want to do is talk about bugging in. Like, what should you already have in your house that you don't touch? It's just there, just in case. And
cold cash.
That would be nice. Not even close.
Lift that mattress, Jeff.
Not even close. But here's the thing. I'm going to go into depth and detail on that in the Patreon later. What are you guys gonna do? Do you think that you'll be in a situation to decide to just stay home on your own? Are you gonna say, hey, you know what? I'm just not gonna go to work. I'm not gonna give these people a time of day. I'm not gonna give these people my time and attention. Or do you want to keep going until they tell you not to come back?
I'm just gonna keep it moving. I think this is gonna pass. I think, once they get a press secretary or somebody that can actually express a true narrative and stop killing the stock market and killing everything else, and just speak the good truth.
Pause, Brother Jeff. At what point in the history of this country or any other can you point to a reliable leader, president, dictator, press secretary that spoke clear and evident truth? I'll wait. So we're hoping for something that's not happening. You just told me you're wishing for something that we know is never going to come. So if you're waiting for the government of our country or any other to give you truth, I feel bad for you. I got some beachfront property in Florida I can sell you. I know a guy.
It has to be somebody who's going to have to take control of this eventually.
Why? Have the years of the United States of America during our lifetime not proven to you there are no adults in the room? We're all hoping that there's going to be an adult that comes in and saves us. It's not going to happen. Nobody's coming to pull your balls out of the fire. You either do it for yourself and be ready, or
oh yeah, absolutely. Katrina. We can list, the list goes on.
But yeah, I hope you don't sit there hoping it's just gonna get better. Cause hold on, BK from the Rockies. Wait, before you go in, BK from the Rockies. He said the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast of the United States is hurting financially. Back in 2009, the DC Metro had Snowmageddon blizzard that shut down the government and hurt business badly because folks stayed home. I was born in Niagara Falls, New York. It's one of the coldest places in the United States and outside of Alaska. And I can tell you, most people really don't know what it's like to have a natural disaster cause you to not be able to leave your home. How it really disrupts you mentally, not just financially, but how that group of people that all of a sudden can't do anything. And it's not an enemy you can fight. It's not a bad guy you can fight. It's a thing that's bigger than you, older than you. And the worst part about it, the snow, just like this disease, it's coldly indifferent to an individual. It doesn't dislike America. It doesn't dislike you. It just got out the cage and decided, I'm going to do as much damage as I can as quickly as possible. Wow, BK came late with the joke, but he had the same joke I did. Government truth, huh? I bet some beachfront property on the sun to sell you first.
Nice and warm. They claim the virus doesn't work well on the warmth. So
yeah, well, that's the good thing about living in South America. Y'all better pack up the loved ones and come on down to Sao Paulo, Brazil for a little while.
Hey,
working on that.
Flights are cheap right now. Flights are cheap. So, but to your question, Wateef, I mean, outside of canned goods and other non-perishable items, I don't think most folks are truly prepared to be home for 2 weeks plus. I mean, from what I'm seeing in most of these membership only retailers such as Costco and BJ's, is everyone's running for toilet paper.
Why?
I there's nothing saying that this thing causes massive diarrhea. There's I mean, your water's still running, so worst case scenario, for lack of better words, hop your ass in the shower. But there's this frenzy, and it's it kind of snowballs, and everyone follows what everyone else is doing. For lack of better words, monkey see, monkey do, and everyone's running for toilet paper, but then vitamins are still on the shelf. It's a virus that's attacking your immune system, but you're worrying about toilet paper. Maybe they're gonna TP each other's houses because they got cabin fever. I don't really know why toilet paper in bulk is selling out like that, but I can't.
I think I'm gonna address that later when I go on. I'm gonna address that later.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, if you're gonna be in the metropolis in a major area like New York and DC, Maryland area, I would think you would want something in your house that doesn't go bad. I mean, I'm sure people are buying pork chops and other things that are gonna get grease and burn. You know, I mean, people just mass hysteria. But let's be realistic and say, what can I eat on, or what can my body sustain off of for a extended period of time if I have to be trapped in my house? I like tuna fish. Sorry.
People aren't prepared for this shit. They're fighting for toilet paper, and ain't nobody stashing guns and ammo, canned good, firewood for cold area. I agree with you. As a matter of fact, BK, if you want to come on our private Patreon later, I can tell you why the only thing on your list I disagree with is the gun statement, and I say that as a gun person. But that's something we can get into later. That's not really the platform for right now, but I don't agree with that part. And I'll go into why when we do that later. But here's the thing. I don't just worry about now. I'm looking at laws changing because of this. You talk about having an invasive government now. The fact that people aren't taking it upon themselves to self-isolate, wash more. I can't believe I just had to say that people need to wash more. It's terrifying that in the United States, even the worst public housing, you can get water. You can get hot water coming. That there are still countries I'm reading about, like apparently, and I know what I'm going to say is I'm going to get my ass kicked, okay? I know I'm going to get my ass kicked. But why do I have my friends who were born in Italy saying, yes, we're not that clean there? Like, I wasn't ready for that. The reason that their hygiene is not the way other people, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they were just pulling my leg, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah, hygiene. I mean, here in New York, hygiene's a huge issue. I mean, these are the simple rules that we learned as children: wash your hands, cover your mouth. You know, try not to spread the germs. And a lot of people are unsanitary. It's just it's a fact that's. I mean, on top of that, a lot of people are I'll say it, a lot of people, at least in this country, our health isn't at the tip top shape either. So those things factor into something like this, attacking respiratory systems and immune systems. But hygiene is something that is just. I mean, I guess I'm a germaphobe. I'm the guy who's like always afraid of touching things. But yeah, a lot of people just do not have simple hygienic practices.
And it's awkward because I've been to places in the world, you know, out in the rural areas where they don't have running water and they're cleaner than everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just terrifying that we're having this chat at all. The fact that we are having this conversation bothers me so much.
Yeah, but it's the reality. It's a conversation that needs to be had, though. It's unfortunate that it gets to this point. You know, aside my not to shift it too much, but I also don't think, at least in this country, we're not ready for martial law. So if you see what's happening in Italy with this all-out shutdown, I think they said that some grocery stores and pharmacies may be open. I just read an op-ed from Newt Gingrich. He's over there in Newsweek, but I don't think, and we also have a bigger population. We have 327 million people roughly. I don't think that we're ready for all-out martial law. I mean, we're not even ready for self-imposed quarantines and isolation. I mean, you know, everyone still feels like it's not as big of a deal. So the question is, what happens if it gets worse?
Yes, I'm scared.
Yeah, if it gets worse, you know, you got, you know, America, a land of the free, people not be able to go places and go where they have to go. You're gonna have a lot of cabin fever. It's gonna, no. I'm saying, will you be able to walk your dog or
Right.
pets? It's deep, you know, it's very deep.
I'm not a cat person, but this might be the time, you know. My sense of humor has been keeping me panic-free, though, I must admit. But that's just speaking for myself. But no, it's definitely a serious thing. You know, the cabin fever, the lack of resources. What happens if if they put a ban on any new shipments coming into these major cities.
Right.
Another thing that's occurring is a lot of people are trying to flee, the privileged people, shall I say, to outer suburbs. You hear about people. I'm going out to the Hamptons, the ones that have the wealth, as if it won't come there. I mean, I'm trying to let people know this is a virus. It's a germ. So if you have mass exodus from a metropolis area such as New York, somebody's taking the germ out with them. It's not going to just stay here in Manhattan and hang out with like Lady Liberty. You know what I mean? So the germ is the coronavirus will go out with those that are trying to flee. And we talk about exchanges. I mean, from your currency, in your pocket, you hold cash, you have credit cards. I mean, people use their cell phones and they put them on all kinds of surfaces. So it's very easy to.
Cell phones are disgusting. I use my little alcohol wipes and I just wipe my cell phone down
all the time. But these are simple, I would think, common sense things that people would implement. But even now, it seems like people still aren't taking it seriously enough. I do think, my no science behind it, but I feel like being in New York, I probably have already been exposed to the coronavirus. It's just that hopefully I haven't contaminated myself or been contaminated by it. But I would think, just with so many people moving back and forth, that most of us here have already been exposed to it. And maybe on the plus side, our immune systems are equipped enough to fight it, so we're not showing symptoms. But the scary thing is, once again, for the elderly and those with underlying conditions, you can obviously easily pass it on to them, it seems.
Who remembers reading this, The Mask of the Red Death?
Yes, I have a friend who keeps. I hope she's listening, or at least going to check it later. That's one of her favorite Edgar Allan Poe publishing. So she's been speaking about that for the last week or so.
Well, wait a minute. Why don't you tell them what that is? Give them the lowdown.
In regards to that particular story?
Yeah.
I don't recall all the specifics. I do remember there was a plague that occurred, but I'll be honest, I don't. That wasn't my favorite Edgar Allan Poe, so I don't necessarily recall the details. So I don't want to lead someone on a horrible literary path.
Jeff, are you up on that one?
Not really. I was more into like Fahrenheit 451. But
Mask of the Red Death was about Prince Prospero's attempt to hide from a plague, and they hid, I believe, in an abbey. It was also a movie with, I want to say, Vincent Price.
Oh, so also getting back. That's what Vincent Price is. What was his era? Like the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, easy 50s and 60s. But yeah, The Mask of the Red Death is about those people who thought they could run and hide from the plague. And of course, the thing about germs is it's going to get you at some point if it's your turn. It's not going to discriminate against rich or poor. The only thing that your privilege can get you is a little bit more preparedness. Money, in my opinion, has always been a proxy for time. If you've got the money to have been prepared for something like this ahead of time, your money is going to do you a lot of good. If you're just going to use your money now to make a run for it, it might not do you any good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're seeing. We're sitting here via webcam, so we are of that quote unquote privileged contingent. My main concern. I've accepted the fact that I've probably been encountered. I have already encountered coronavirus. I've accepted the fact there's a slight chance that I may contract it. Hopefully, it doesn't attack my body. I'm 34, so and semi-healthy, but hopefully, it doesn't ravage through my system. But it's those that are definitely out there less fortunate, the homeless. Once again, those underlying conditions. I'm blessed to have an 89-year-old grandmother, a 92-year-old grandfather. My grandmother already imposed a ban on our house. No one's coming in. So, but those are the people that I'm firstly and foremost concerned for, and then it trickles down to the rest of us. But we are definitely lucky to even be sitting here talking with one another, because some folks don't even have that privilege.
That's
Wow.
true. Anybody remember that movie 28 Days Later?
Oh, that's a good one.
That was.
That's a good one.
That was a good movie.
Yeah. Real stuff. I mean, we always joke about these zombie apocalypses, and I reached out to Will Smith and Brad Pitt the other day, and they told me it was just a movie. So we're on our own out here.
Well, here's the other thing. Well, for BK from Rockies, when in doubt, remember the words of Voltaire: "Common sense is not so common," and that's the thing. But getting back to what you said, what we opened up the show with was New York City schools closing. 1,800 schools, 1.1 million children. Here's where it's going to really break down of how wealth can help you, and how not just preparedness, but being financially solvent. A lot of schools are saying, listen, we're going to send these kids home and we're going to have them work online to go to school. Well, if you live in your house or my house or your house, that might be a good idea. But how many kids that live in low-income housing projects, housing schemes, have high-access internet and a laptop that they can just get on for 8 hours to just sit there and do their schoolwork?
True. Very true.
Yeah.
That's the digital divide. The digital divide is still killing us.
Well,
Want to do the digital divide more for me?
So the digital divide was a concept that I think came out maybe like 10 years ago, about access to certain type of tools and certain type of IT. The term's not being used anymore, but in this case, when you said low income and having access to those resources and that tools and that bandwidth to get things done, if you don't have it, you're kind of like stuck.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
I'm saying, how long can you use your phone for a hotspot, basically trying to use your laptop and basically destroy your data plan if you don't have that robust internet connection coming into your space? I'm an IT guy, so.
No, that's so true. I mean, and a lot of these students are, let's be honest, a lot of them are behind the learning curve, in our public school system here in New York. The biggest has a lot of challenges with just keeping us up to the nation standard or the global standard of learning. A lot of students are, you have crowded classrooms, you have other distractions. And I think another thing that we haven't discussed yet is that period of time at school. Sometimes that's those kids' refuge from home. There's a lot of students who are encountering unsavory conditions in their own home. You know what I mean? They have parents who may be abusive, parents who may be on narcotics, all kinds of things that also, not every student, but a lot of that can play into it as well. So sometimes that school meal program may be the only proper nutrition that they're receiving. There's a lot of other underlying factors that are going to occur from the city public school closure. I mean, I'm not trying to make it sound like it's a doomsday thing. I mean, a lot of students have loving parents that are engaged, but let's be real, a lot of people don't. And being home, outside of just that digital divide, there's that social and emotional and other tolls that occur right in their own homes.
So you're going from adult supervision to no supervision, and if that student doesn't have that drive and initiative, it's just, even though if they do have the tools, if they're not taking initiative to do their studies. Now you're talking about test scores. You know what happens when we have best test scores? They cut the money. No child left behind. That was evident. So it's a lot of critical thought and big picture thinking here with what's going on with this.
Right. Imagine their parents have to go home. You're right. They're on their own. If I'm 12 or so, and I do have access to something digital, I may not be logging in online for schoolwork. I'm playing video games, doing something that's more entertaining to me.
And that's the whole point of having adults in the room. Adults are the people who are there to make sure you do what's necessary, not, what a kid would normally want to do.
Right.
I want to share something with you before I go to the other side of that I'm going to put it here on the, I'm going to put it in 2 places. One, I'm going to put it, let's see if I can put it in the chat room before I go live. I mean, before I put it on the screen. There. And international travel document news. We have a coronavirus update. Now, here's the thing. Apparently, this is a reputable site. I'd like to believe it is, but trust nothing. This is a site that updates all the things that other countries have been saying about the people traveling in and out. In alphabetical order, down. Countries are changing their laws quickly. They're changing almost every 5 minutes in some places what you can and cannot do, where you can and cannot go. And it's going to be very hard. That's why I tell people a couple of things. If you have thought about traveling abroad and getting yourself started, I wanted to tell people, I told people a while back, I told people, listen, I want you to make sure you get on that as soon as possible because I see the world getting smaller. Now we see the gates closing. Now you're going to have countries that have plausible deniability to say, we don't want any foreigners. If you're not already here.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, just in times of chaos, you know, we've seen how governments react. And if people aren't up on it and they're not self-efficient and they're not actively progressive and trying to see what's going on, they're going to be left in the dust.
Hey, DeAndre. Just DeAndre, are you in Japan right now? If you're in Japan and you want a link, let me know. Hello, Chaz, and thank you for the compliment. I hope you share this. Everybody watching, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe and share. As I said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about prepping and how the things that we have in our house can help us in a situation like this. And it's awkward because 99% of the time, everybody picks on me for saying I'm a prepper and I do this and I do that. Then when shit like this happens, I get those phone calls, and I don't berate people. I don't yell at them. I just say, hey, listen, I'm not crazy, but just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
Right.
True that.
And what do we do? And yet here we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send, let's see. I'm going to send the link to Just DeAndre and make sure that he can come up and tell us where he is so that, let's see. I can't do 2 things at once. Y'all can talk. I can't send this. And
what's the temperature over there in NYC right now?
Oh man, it's a balmy, I think about 55.
Yeah, it's a balmy 70 degrees here, and that's not helping either with this climate change. DC, we had a very, very mild winter. Normally in February, we usually get blasted.
Right,
and it gets cold, and the shitty shuts down. This year, I was waiting for it, and like around Valentine's Day, I was still waiting for it. We went right through February. We didn't get blasted. So a lot of those germs and stuff, you know, it was like Friday, people were walking around with flip-flops and shorts and stuff. It's not helping.
No.
Yes. If you don't have that deep freeze, I'm talking about that cold winter, the kill mosquito larvae and everything else.
Right.
It makes matters worse. This is just science. No, this is.
Yeah, same here. I mean, you know, I'm about 4.5 hours up, 5 hours max, depending how fast you drive up the East Coast. So we've had the same mild winter. I haven't worn a down jacket all year.
Me too. Me too.
To layer myself and walk around. I mean, maybe a couple nights we've had the lowest is maybe like 16 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, so that's still hit like 0. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously that's freezing, but you know, the daytime has been very mild. You know, actually the last 2 days have been really nice. And you know, I stated that the city's kind of becoming a ghost town, so I've been able to maneuver around pretty easily. And I've even noticed it as I stayed at work in Times Square. So that's why I said I'm probably been exposed. I mean, hopefully I don't have anything, but you know, a lot of people aren't moving around as much. But to your point, Jeff, the climate is definitely it's doing its thing, I guess, or lack thereof. I'm not sure, but I'm used to cold winters.
Yeah, look at that comment right there.
Right.
What's that?
Right. Could
Never seen anything like this in the DMV. No snow at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now what happened?
I'm
So
sorry,
now
what did you say?
we didn't get the snow, and you know, and I grew up hating snow. That's why I left it. I'm angry that Brazil is entering their cold season because remember, I'm on the other side of the equator. So January, February is carnival. We had a cold carnival. It rained, which was unusual. And I commented that I remember my first year here 5 years ago, how hot it was and how much I loved it. And sometimes I would just have to just be that uncomfortable hot walking just in the house, but I would rather have that than the cold. And I can't feel it now.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean,
What up? What up?
What's up?
Yeah, tell me where you are.
I'm in Japan.
That's what's up.
it's cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of bad, and it's not as bad as it is in China here. Well, they closed down the schools. They closed down the schools and stuff. They did that about like the end of February. Near the end of February, mid-February. Pretty much all the schools were closed down. My son, he's going to high school, so he did the little ending ceremony for junior high school. But none of the parents could come.
Wow.
So it was only the kids, and it was just so they can just say goodbyes to everybody because and then schools are still closed. So people don't know when school is going to start. They canceled all the baseball events because it's baseball season. They're not really sure what they're going to do with the Olympics because the Olympics
Wow,
is this.
I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. The Olympics.
Yeah, so they're not sure what they're going to do about that. A lot of the qualifying stuff that they're supposed to do, they've lost that. Companies are pulling out. Sponsors been pulling out. People are stuck. They're stranded. So there's travelers that are here. They can't fly back because you can't fly back to the States or back to Europe because they made it a no-fly thing. People can't come in. Like my wife, because we're in entertainment, so we were doing projects and contracts for the Olympics, and she's stuck in England. And she's been there since the January 8th when she flew over there. So she's supposed to have been back mid-February. She couldn't come back. They canceled all flights. So there's planes on the ground, not flying in and out of Asia right now. Milan is locked down. Italy is locked down. There was a guy that was in the news, Italian guy. His sister died from the virus but was in the house. And it took 36 hours for the authorities to come get the body out of the house, right? Because in Italy, in authoritarian countries, you can't leave. When they tell you you need to be in the house, if you leave out of the house, they can take you to jail or worse, kill you. Like, and ain't nothing you can do about it. So this virus thing is very serious. The problem is that the United States did not. And I'm talking about the government of the United States didn't take it serious. They didn't take it as serious. And the reason, and if they would have put certain precautions into place, there wouldn't be what's going on right now. Because the problem is this virus, it may not be very deadly, but it is very, very, very contagious.
Wow.
It's contagious, right? But there's this weird thing about it that it only really affects the people that are highly susceptible of getting it are men, and they're men over, they say over like around like between 45 and over, right? So they're more, anybody can get it, but it's more on men. women that have hit menopause and stuff like that. They're putting out all this data and stuff. But that's been what's going on. There hasn't been really too many cases of black people getting it. It's more, and that's probably because there was a article in one of the in a couple of news outlets, especially over here and actually in the States, that a guy from the continent, I think from Nigeria, somewhere like that, he caught it in China within that same area. They treated him and he recovered very quickly. And they found out that, people that have that genome pattern, black people or people from the continent, they have a higher resistance to it.
Can you give me a link to that, DeAndre? Can you give us?
Yeah.
Because I always, and you guys and the people watching can always understand, I'm very hesitant to walk down a path of that's why I'm always gonna ask for the goods, and it's not, and I ask because I care.
Yeah. No, it's like I don't like when people say that, like of course, like from a place of origin, right? Because viruses attach themselves to DNA, right? So if a virus originated in, let's just say, in a Latin country, right? Of course, if it jumps on someone that's from another country, with another genotype, of course, that person will be more resistant to it, but that doesn't mean you can't get it, right? Until that virus adapts and is passed on to those people, then it's super contagious, right? So,
you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm typing at the same time.
Okay, I didn't know what happened.
Or
I'm good.
Yeah, resistant. Yeah.
You said I'm good.
That's me.
No, I'm saying I was typing while I was doing it.
I am. I can't do 2 or 3 things at once. I can't talk to you guys and blah blah blah, and then
While you're searching, brother DeAndre has given me. Hopefully, this article is correct. You're giving me some as a black male in America. You may be giving me some optimism.
Well, the reason if you look,
the cops might get you, but at least the corona won't.
Hey man, 1 for 2 ain't bad.
Well, like I'm looking for, because it was actually, I was looking through Yahoo, right? And I was looking through Yahoo. And let's see, I was looking through Yahoo and it was up on there and I double checked it and stuff like that. Now we're looking at and then it was gone, like after it was said, right? So I'm still looking for it if I can find it again. But I found some other articles that I would, because we were talking about this on Prophet of Thought's channel, Brother Xavier's channel, and he brought a medical student up that's going to be a doctor that's in his last semester of getting his doctorates. And he brought him up, and he was bringing him up there, telling people about hand sanitizer isn't good unless you wash your hands. It's pretty much pointless, right? And he also stated that those little masks that you wear is not going to protect you from stuff. It's actually to keep you from spewing stuff on other people. So that's not going to protect you from the virus wearing them little masks. Now, Yusef used to be in Asia. We already know why they wear those masks is because they're sick and they don't want to get you sick or spray anything on you. It's not going to protect you. You can even test it with one of them little masks with the clip on it. You can take a little spray bottle, spray, and then you can feel all that droplets be on the other side of your hand where the mask is, where your face would fit into it. And that will tell you, because if water will get through there, then aerosol, will definitely get through that mask. So that mask is not going to do. You would need one of those 3M like biomass to actually take care of that.
N95.
Yep, you would need one of those So the next thing with that is they were talking about how they found in Thailand a guy that was traveling. It happens to be a white guy. He was traveling and he caught the virus because he was going from China to Thailand, guess, doing the business, and he got sick. They found out what it was because after the virus broke, and then they treated it with some success. a cocktail of HIV meds and flu medication, viral medication, right? And then people, people were taking this and running with it and saying that the coronavirus has strands of HIV-1, but that's not the case. It's just they're throwing anything at it. They're actually using Ebola meds to combat, because they're trying to figure out how to quickly deal with this, because you don't know if you have it. Like, the symptoms aren't as pronounced as a regular like flu infection. It's you can have a stomach ache and you got it. The incubation period can be, they say, between 14 to 28 days. It's like the NHL player. He caught it. They don't know how he caught it, and they said, "Where was your travel?" And it used to be, they said, 30 to 60 days. Now they're moving it out to 90 days, because he was traveling between 90 days of where he was traveling from, and he tested positive for the coronavirus and stuff like that. Even with the NBA player, right? So it's a lot of stuff. Like, they can't wrap their heads around it, and really what this is, and we were discussing that over there, is the reason why, like, they kind of quelled it in China and they're quelling it in Asia is because they have a universal healthcare system where we do not have that in the United States.
We talked about that before. Before you came in. We talked about that the other night on my chat that I had called Coronavirus Brazil, when I said it's not necessarily that Brazilians are, resolute to all that other stuff, but when you have when you have a public healthcare system that allows you to go to the doctor at the slightest sense of illness, when you I don't know if that sounds good. In America, you got to worry about that copay. You got to worry about not getting for that time off. For those who don't know, go watch this one live, Coronavirus Brazil. Go watch that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now, when you have a place that has that medical system that says, "Listen, come in, get yourself checked out," that way, even if it is true, we can hammer it down early.
Yeah. What's that? It's an old saying in America. You go in for the cold, you leave without a liver, because you got to sell one of your kidneys to pay off the bill for you getting the aspirin or whatever for your cold. And Black people, we already have this adverse thing about going to the doctor, right? We just, it's just something I don't know, like, some people call it's a scientific thing called, like, trauma sent through DNA or something like that, if you believe in that. But we just don't want to go to the doctor, and then if you got to pay for something, and then is it worth me going to the doctor, a lot of times, because I can't afford it. The other thing about universal healthcare is that in universal healthcare, in the healthcare system, you can privatize your practice and you will make money, but you have to be the best of the best doctor. You have to specialize in something, even if it's family general medicine. Like right now, the doctor's office, the general family doctors are closed, right? And they did that on purpose, so everyone would go to the main universities to get tested, or if they have any symptoms, because they don't want anything slipping through the cracks, because a regular family doctor is not equipped to test for that, not even specialists, right? So they are equipped for it. Now, Japan and
Hold on 1 quick second. Let me do something before we go too far past. As someone who believes in going to doctors, I go to
snap! I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
that's right on point.
Here is one example of historically, for people who are watching this from other countries, when Black Americans talk about being afraid to go to the doctor, it's not that we're afraid of getting an injection or having a surgery. It's that the United States has a long history, and we can go through this another day, a long history of using Black Americans as lab rats, guinea pigs. There were many well-documented experiments where they would simply infect Black people with a disease to see what happened in the human body. There are countless. The reason I talk about this is the one that happened during my grandmother's time, which accounted for her fear. It was real. They would give you diseases or give you STDs to find out what it did and pretend to give you a cure, while in fact simply documenting the disease's progress through not only your body, but your community. For the people who need context. Now, I want to go back and I want to catch Wayne on this. I've got to mute myself for a quick second. But Wayne, you hear people in your community, however you define your community. Are you guys going to the doctor? Are you guys getting checked up? Are you guys finding out what your general state of health is before and now? But I've got to mute for a quick second. Go ahead.
Yeah, my community, I'm one of that quote unquote educated bubble of at least undergraduate degree or more. We discussed these type of things before this outbreak, during it. I personally work for a healthcare labor union, so I'm always around healthcare professionals. So it's something that we stress amongst ourselves. The broader community, that to your point earlier, that's definitely not, I think, being relayed amongst one another. More people are disappointed about the NBA being canceled than to make sure if their health is on point. But my network of friends, my circle, yes, we talk about these things. I talk about it ad nauseum just because it's something that we all need to be conscious of, to make sure that we're healthy and trying to get the most out of this thing called life.
Wayne.
Yes.
You just said something. You just said getting the most out of this thing called life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just said being healthy. That was an amazing segue. Look at what we just got. Who we just got a comment from. We just got a comment from the 44. How many of you people remember him the last time he chatted with me?
Oh, this is the yes.
This is 44. Listen, y'all. The Muscle Hustle 44 on Swole. This dude, this guy right here, the guy who I go to for arcane, grim advice on if I want to take my body to that next level. Who I'm still on the porch. I've dabbled in some interesting things and talked to my doctor about it. This is the reason that I have Patreon. Me and the 44 are gonna have a conversation where he goes all in on what you need to do to get what you want if you've got the stones for it. The good, the bad, the ugly. We can't talk about that on YouTube. That's why I have Patreon.
Yeah.
Whew. I'm gonna make sure everybody gets a piece of that action. Listen, right now, go get on the Patreon. Go get on the Patreon right now, because that's gonna be one hell of a.
Yeah.
Hey, brother 44, thank you for popping in. When are we gonna chat? Let me say this. When are we on? When are we on? I'm gonna ask him specifically. When are we on? He's got to call me and give me a time, because I don't care if it's the middle of the night. When we go on, y'all better wake up, click in.
I'm in.
Yep. Like these, I think with this virus thing, because sometimes what I'm saying, too many occurrences or too many things that keep happening in a pattern. Yusef, he was in the finance community and stuff like that, and when you look at things in a pattern, right? When you Yusef, you got a client and you're trying to get something for investments, you look at patterns, right? You look at it as the market goes up, you buy low, you sell high, right? And this is how investments work. I'm in the industry, so this affects me, right? This affects me in a way where I got to look at currencies. I got to know when to get this artist or we're going to do this type of event. I got to know where to buy these plane tickets and what's going to go into effect and how to sell this, right? If there's a pandemic, I'm not making any money, right? Because no one wants to be entertained right now. They're scared for their life. That's the least thing on their mind, right? Unless the tragedy has already happened, like 9/11, and then we're going to have a football game, Sunday football, so we can get kind of, push ourselves away from what's actually went down, right? So, so with this is I've noticed every time that there's a worldwide event, right? And I mean a worldwide event. And when I mean this worldwide event, I'm talking about the Olympics, right? There was a major virus outbreak in the same region in China when they had the Olympics, right? The Summer Olympics, right? There was the Zika virus that broke out when they had the Summer Olympics in Brazil, right? Now, then there's this virus that's happening, and the Summer Olympics is in Japan. Happens always before the Summer Olympics. If you keep seeing a pattern of something, then you start to ask yourself, why? Why do we keep seeing this pattern? Right? Right? Why is this happening? Right? Like, why do, if you like, is the United States that arrogant? Right?
You know what? Let me do this. But before we go into the second part because you talked about the Olympics and the pattern in the United States. Here's where I want to go into why I don't believe that this disease is an attack. This is why I don't believe that. I believe that the human animal looks for patterns and chaos to stop us from going insane. We look for things to have a pattern because it convinces us of the lie that the universe is not, in fact, cold and indifferent to our suffering, but it really is. Plagues, viruses have been wiping off chunks of the people on the planet long before the Olympics was ever conceived of. The reason that we don't need to come up with a new plague or a new virus is because we have plenty that could kill us. The problem is they're indiscriminate. You can't let it loose and say, okay, disease, we only want you to kill my enemies over in Wayne's neighborhood, but not just neighborhood.
No, I'm not saying that, right? I'm not saying that's how this is going. This is what I'm saying, right? And this is where this is where you start thinking in that sense, but not really, right? Remember, I was in the military, so I don't go down in the road unless I have just cause to go down in the road, right? Because I am privy to information that other people can't get, even though I'm not. That there's a reason why I still live next to a military base. There's a reason, right? So the reason why I say this is because that virus comes out of Wuhan province, right? Wuhan province is where China researches, just like we have a CDC that's in Atlanta, right? The CDC, I'm gonna let people know, the CDC is not there to help you. The CDC is there to investigate, synthesize infectious diseases.
That's
right.
So brother David said just somebody at his job had the coronavirus and fell out, and they've just evacuated. I sent him a link if he wants to come up and talk with us.
That's
and Dave, you don't have to tell us where you work specifically or who fell out, but if you want to come up, I can send you a link to your phone anywhere. If you want to come up right now and talk with us.
Okay. The brother David.
Thanks for the compliment, Kelvin.
Yeah. The brother David said he has a top secret clearance. I work for the nuclear power plant for Puget Sound Naval Shipyard for the nuclear carrier over here. If you have a top secret clearance, you would have we would have the same clearances when it comes to that. That's on the civilian side. When I was in the military, I had those same clearances also. So I'm actually talking in conjuncture, but you can actually go double check what I'm saying. And there's articles about Wuhan province, their CDC. So I'm only talking about public knowledge. I'm not giving you anything else. And the Chinese government just accused the United States Army of actually having the patient zero in Wuhan province, right? And they're trying to push back on it. Now, I don't think that's what happened, right? I don't think that's what happened. What I'm basically saying is this. When World War II happened, right? And I'm just jumping back real quick. When World War II happened, right? Pearl Harbor was bombed, right? The United States ignored the British for giving them the heads up because the British told them beforehand. They ignored it, right? Now, the United States was playing on the outside of the war, right? They were waiting to see who won in Europe, right? And then while they were waiting, they were going to do a business deal with whoever. Because remember, the United States still owed money to France, and they still owed money to Spain. They still owed money, even up until World War II, right? So they were trying to see, because guess what? If you owe money to someone and they don't have a country anymore, you ain't got to pay them. If the bank is no longer there, you ain't got to pay them. right? So the Japanese got involved on behest of the Germans, and this made the United States go into war. Now, the United States needed an excuse to go into war because the Germans were actually paying off the United States to stay out of it, right? So you see how this works. Why did they downplay this virus so much? If you look at the president, he went up there, right? And he kept downplaying it and downplaying, even though we're talking about Asia's locked down, right? We're talking about China. People are falling out and dying left and right, right? We're talking about people can't fly. My wife has been stuck in England since the 8th of January because she can't fly back because they stopped flights coming in. Italy is locked down. You can't fly in and out of Italy. Milan is quarantined, right? This is actually happening, right? Now it's pockets, right? We got the first really hit place was that a community outside of the main boroughs of New York, right? That, you know what I'm saying, they're canceling schools, they're canceling once the NBA events got canceled. That should have told you something like really, really important. That like if they cancel the whole NBA season, this thing is really not canceled but suspended a NBA season. So what I'm basically saying is that this happens a lot. Now, it hasn't affected a lot of the countries below the equator yet because it's not their winter yet. But they're starting to get cases in Australia because they're going into their fall. You know what I'm saying? Because their summer is like the end of their summer is now, right? So they even said this that it's going to affect people below the equator once their winter hit, which is our summer, right? You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that we have to watch something because it's something that, you know, it's if the universe will fix itself, it will balance itself, right? And like Yusef said, it's not this, that, and the third. It's that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. I'm not saying that someone literally took this virus and dropped it off and said, we're going to attack this and not attack our enemies. That's foolhardy because anybody in their right mind wouldn't do that, right? But what I'm saying is that the bubonic plague started because of industrialization. Right? Industrialization, lack of facilities, lack of safety, lack of hygiene. You know, the rats run around biting people, and that's what had the bubonic plague and people not knowing, and it escalated, right? What I'm saying is this thing, right? This coronavirus is only in animals, right? And the animal that they said it came from, it keeps switching, right? So for you to get this, because animals, even if you cook them, there's certain diseases that heat will just not get rid of, but you won't get it because it's only for animals. Now, the only way a human being can get this type of disease is if it's synthesized to the point or it's researched, and then there's a mutation. Mutations happen, right? When you start dealing with things and start bioengineering things, right? So now if this happened, someone happened to be in the lab working, they happened to prick their finger, not do the proper protocols, and then they left the laboratory and infected themselves, then this can happen.
So let me back up for a second. Brother David Pitts, welcome.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Always a pleasure to have you here. By the way, can you get to a point where the light is in front of you, not behind you, so we can see you? It's not like a outline of a mysterious agency man with a beard showing.
I mean, if we talking conspiracy, why would I want my face to be revealed? I mean, yeah, I mean, talk like this. To the white man's picture. I mean, no, I was just taking notes. I mean, human coronaviruses have been around since 229E and OC43, which was discovered in the 1960s. They're a family of RNA viruses that came out of that caused the common cold. There's never been a treatment for coronaviruses. They're a family of coronaviruses. And so basically we have two camps here when it comes to discussion about this coronavirus. We have the camp which I'm on, which is the Yusef camp, which is just part of the scientists have been predicting these pandemics for years due to the increased population, close proximity, human meddling with the environment, these bizarre diets and wildlife markets that China has and other things that happen in the world. And then there's the totally conspiracy market. There's a totally conspiracy who every virus and every disease is a man-made phenomenon, and we can probably cure it with herbs and spices. Now, I'm being extreme on both sides, and in between those two camps, there are degrees of extremism, and sometimes they can meet in the middle, and sometimes they can't. I can't really, if someone has privy or information that I don't have, or information that I can't get to, I can't even discuss that. That's just beyond my realm, and I just have to accept that on face value. It is true that Wuhan, China, is home to China's only bioweapons lab. And there was a circulated story on the internet that basically that some lab monkeys or lab animals were being sold to this market, and that they were somehow entered to the wildlife market, and because they were introduced into the diet and so forth and so on, there was a strange mutation, and boom, we had coronavirus patient number 1. The Chinese, of course, that was circulated on the internet, as the Chinese said that was circulated purposely against them as propaganda, and the Chinese retaliated with the ambassador, who's been redacted, who was saying, well, this is a U.S. Army chemical lab experiment, partly in response to Trump throwing the blame of the coronavirus on China and China alone.
Yeah.
So if we take those two extreme camps, and we can just come to an agreement that, hey man, those are the topics we can't even discuss, because if someone says that it's a conspiracy, absolute conspiracy, and it's man-made, there's really no way we can debate it. We just have to take it or leave it alone. Yeah. But if we look at what happened with China and the overall economic devastation that coronavirus has caused, whether you believe it's a strong flu or not, obviously people would not be sacrificing millions of dollars in big business if this weren't serious. So it is something serious. To the degree whether it would destroy human mankind and all that, probably not. To the degree that as long as it will disrupt a lot of people's lives, and if just 2 or 3% of a large population of the United States start dropping dead, that will have a significant economic, financial, and physical toll on the United States. It will change relationships with countries. It will change how we do business. And scientists since the 1980s have predicted these pandemics, and they said they would increase with frequency. And that goes, and so we've always had pandemics. The problem is now we have instant flight. We have 5 or 6 hours of flight can get over. We have ships, we have trains, we have cargo, we have all these means of transmission that is beyond. Plus, we have instantaneous reporting of the internet, fueled with the media instantaneous reporting. And so now pandemics are seen closer and closer and closer. One of the things that is working in Africa's favor, a lot of people say, oh, African Americans, Black people, melanated people are immune. I don't subscribe to that they're immune to viruses, because Ebola and HIV have devastated African communities and African Americans. What is working in the favor of Africa is simple epidemiological science. The lack of connectivity and the lack of instantaneous infrastructure is working in Africa's favor at this point with this coronavirus. There are not as many people traveling from that area to Italy and China and back and forth. Yes, there are loads of Chinese in Africa, but they're only in certain areas. They're not dispersed throughout the areas. African continent, which I've lived in Ghana, and I lived in Nigeria, they don't have the instantaneous connection between, let's say, Kumasi and Accra in Ghana, Lagos, and up in the northern country, Abuja, and that is working in their favor. I just left Detroit, Michigan, and I told Yusef, I sent Yusef a picture of a supermarket in Detroit in one of the suburbs. The one in Detroit had the normal stocks, plenty of toilet paper, food, and that because, ironically, the segregation of Black Americans from these affluent population is working in its favor. Because there's no reason for anybody flying from Italy, if they're Caucasian, to come and visit Detroit unless they're going downtown to some casino. So in my area where I was on 7 Mile, 6 Mile, 5 Mile, 4 Mile, Finkel, Livernois, Woodward Avenue, all Black, segregated, high unemployment anyway. Ain't nobody worried about no job. Ain't nobody got no money to buy no $800 worth of groceries. And ain't nobody damn well buying no $500 worth of toilet paper. So we see through simple epidemiological science how these diseases are spread. And what's fascinating is these patterns, I know I've kind of gotten off topic, but these patterns of segregation are actually working in favor because you're going to see a slower rollout of the virus in terms of Black communities. Now, why do I say this? There was a joke. Somebody said, well, the NBA will get it because all the players are dating white women. That's kind of a joke, but
Wow.
that was a cool joke that somebody told me. But what we're seeing now is community transmission of this virus. And so this is where we're at right now, whether we believe it's man-made, partially man-made, or not man-made. There's only two attempts to control this: mass social distancing and mandatory quarantines. When I say quarantines, I'm talking about preventing people from leaving the state. They're talking about like, hey, no more flights to California. That would cause a major disruption in the country. But that and the slowing down of transmission, and I agree with my brother. I personally feel because influenza slows down in the summer, not necessarily because the virus is heated up, because people's patterns are changing, that they're hoping just to put speed brakes on this. They know that they have no hope of developing a vaccine anytime soon, even though the Israelis said they're going to roll one out in 90 days. And that's a whole, if I say Israeli, I'm bringing in all kind of conspiracy.
Yeah, you can't mention the pointy hat people.
Even though Iran's cleric just made the top Iranian cleric says if the Zionists come up, quote unquote, come up with a vaccine, they're going to make an exception. I thought that was hilarious. But so the problem is now that they are looking at putting speed brakes on this virus. They want to put speed brakes on it to try to slow it down. And hopefully enough people, some people are going to get sick. Some people are going to muster enough antibodies. And they're simply going to do blood seruming. That's what their technique is. Blood seruming is when you take the blood plasma of someone who's overcome the virus and you try to give it to someone who is suffering from the virus and have an antibody response. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, however, and I know my brother's on this, is that there was an African student from, I don't know if he's from Ghana or Nigeria, who was one of the first cases in China with a severe case of of COVID-19, aka
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
They treated him with HIV retroviral drugs. So HIV drugs break up the RNA reproduction of the virus. So when the virus hosts a cell, and I want everybody on here who's watching this to go to online and watch Virology 101. You can just type in Virology 101 on YouTube. It's by Cornell University. This professor gives a 3-class course on virology. You watch that run course, you'll know more than 99% of the people on virology. But these HIV drugs basically break up the replication of the viruses once it gets in the host cell. And they were able to treat him with these retroviral drugs, with these drugs that they use for HIV. They were able to use these.
Is that it?
Yes, that's the course right there. Excellent course. I mean, that course is golden. Watch that and you will blow your mind. You'll go to the nurse, to your general physician, and you'll blow him out the water because he won't know what he's talking about. But they were able to use those same technique, those same drugs they use in treatment of HIV, and this patient came back pretty rapidly. That's something that I have not heard a lot of scholars talk about. It's just attacking this by trying to break up the replication of the virus. Vaccinology is tough. I mean, that's going to be hard to do. Trying to get a sample of people and then trying to make it safe. And then we're in a litigious, United States is so litigious and the Western world is so litigious. You take the vaccine, you break out with a rash, you sue them for $30 billion. Then there's the economic incentive. It's a mess. But the biggest thing that's going to destroy the United States is our political inability, our bureaucracy, and our horrible healthcare system that is just for profit. That's going to destroy this mess. And that's making it worse. And so if anything is a conspiracy, it's our conspiracy of our inability in the United States to recognize our limitations. Trust me, Senegal, Nigeria, these other countries, they will do much better with their basic techniques than we, Senegal, did you hear the news? Senegal came up with a 10-minute test that they're sending to the UK. 10-minute test, Senegal. And here we are in the United States, we FedExing the stuff UPS 2 and 3 day and waiting 6 or 7 days to get it, if your doctor approves it with the $45 copay.
David, the article you was talking about is right here in the StreamYards chat about the flu HIV drug mixture that helped treat the virus.
Right.
they took what they got in China from the brother that's over there, because you can't find that article no more. Because I saw it when it popped up.
I know Kenya developed alpha interferon to work against HIV successfully, and successfully was able to get people down to undetectable loads of HIV.
Yeah,
and this is probably the same technique that they use in China. And you're right. There's not a lot of public knowledge about that. I think it has to do with money. Alpha interferon companies don't want to do this because the government would step in and make it virtually free, and they wouldn't make any money.
Well, it was another company. There was a biolab in California, right, that said that they came up with a cure for it in 3 hours, right, after this story broke. But then all of a sudden, you don't see that article nowhere. I was just scrolling through Yahoo. I double checked it, and that article it came out of the New York Times and the LA Times, right? And then you can't find it. It's like it got scrubbed out of existence, right? So even with that case with that doctor, then when you go look for it, it'll say all this debunking thing of it if you try to do a search for it, right? So this is still up. And then there's a couple of articles that I found that I bookmarked so I can go back to them and refer to them. But this one is still up. It's right here. If you look at it and read it, that's from Nikkei. You know what I'm saying?
Can you share it so I can pop it on the screen?
So Yusef, we have two camps, and at some point we have to try to come together. So we have on one side, we have one camp, which is the conspiracy side. We have the natural selection side, which I'm going to call your side. But they actually overlap the two because in our response, there is some strange things in our response. The lack of testing kits, the fumbling around with it, the lack of concern, the overall lack of access. So there are some things that are suspicious. Do I think someone just got into a lab and made this? Well, I mean, hell, they didn't do a good job. They should have came up with a damn respiratory Ebola virus. Now that would really do it. But the scary thing about COVID-19 is that it's not deadly. It's deadly. In some people, it goes rapid, but the fact is not deadly, which means there's so many asymptomatic people out there. They're not going to stop this. Eventually, everybody will get this or be exposed to it. You may have been exposed to it already. Your body just may have thrown it off. Yeah,
it's just like the way I look at it, right, is that it's not that they made it. It's just that you synthesize something to the point where, like, if you look at the Ebola virus, right, how it kills you, how it goes through, right? What's more profitable? Something that kills you in 4 to 5 days, maybe a week, or something that you can live with and they can make money off it, like HIV, right? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to synthesize something, right, people keep forgetting that your greatest resource are people, right? You need people to work. You need people to consume, right? Things, right? And if people aren't a greatest resource, then you don't need that many people, right? Now, it's strange to me that this virus, it really attacks men over a certain age, right? Like they really get it the worst, right? Like they said, men between 45-ish and over are more susceptible to it, and women that hit menopause, right? You know what I'm saying? So let's just like I don't think anybody just went and did this like off that. They probably researching it, trying to synthesize it, see what they can do with it, something like that. Because our governments do stuff like this. You know what I mean? That Geneva Convention is only conjuncture, right? It's a gentleman's agreement. Long as you don't get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, like, you know what I mean? This is a gentleman's agreement, right? But at the same time, this is actually resetting the inflation of the world market, right? All goods come from China, right? So after everybody get over this virus, you're going to be less likely to want goods that come out of China worldwide, right? Now, there are great things that come out of China, but then there are a lot of knockoffs, things that come out of China, right? Like you have to be careful of certain things. It has to be verified, right? So
yeah, I lived in Shanghai. I can tell you that's true.
So be careful of certain things. It has to be verified. Yeah, so you have to like at the same time, what I'm looking at it is from an economical standpoint, right?
Mhm.
Because for Black people, we don't travel as much as we should, but this is actually for our benefit at this point in time, right?
Right.
We stay in our little areas, right? It's not really affecting us, right? It's kind of like the opioid crisis, right? Like,
Right.
you know, Black people don't have health insurance, so we can't afford to get opioids and get hooked on, right? It's a blue collar thing, right? It's not really on us. Now, if you take this virus and it's spreading, right? The people that are most susceptible to it, according, I was talking to this pre-med student, he's about to get his doctorates, right? And he was saying that it's people that have pre-existing conditions, right? Long-term effects. People. So I asked him, wouldn't this virus affect people that are on opioids, unoperational things like cancers and stuff? He said yes. So if we have an opioid crisis, and majority of those people that are on this opioid epidemic and crisis are the quote unquote people, you know, the other people, you know, the white people, right? Wouldn't this virus pretty much hurt them more than it's hurting, you know, mainly us to a certain degree? Not saying, you know, whatever, but automation is coming through. And you have to, you know, quote unquote, call the herd to move into the next era of you know, production, right? The technological age, right? The cyber age, right? The AI age, right? So just like horses had to kind of go away when we moved into the industrial age with the cars and the trucks and you're talking about petrol fuels and stuff, right? So if you're looking at this, then this, like you said, like Yusef saying, like the universe will balance itself. You know, evolution is what it is. So maybe this virus is that catalyst that is pushing the world into that stratosphere, right? And the most overpopulated place, right, is pretty much China and India. They're pretty much the most overpopulated place. But the problem with China is they have too many men versus women. They have a big issue, right? I'm not saying that they went in there and engineered this for that purpose, but it just working out that way. Why is this happening? Right now, I've been to China. Yusuf's been to China. You know, we know that in these industrial places or in these enclaves of these packed cities, they're not as clean as, say, a Singapore or a Japan or in Australia. They have community toilets and showers in these apartment buildings and complexes. They'll live on top of each other. It'll be 15 people in one little shack building or one unit, right? They'll be called on, and then, you know, they'll throw anything on the street. You know, that's just how they are as the people. They use still rotting toilets and stuff like that. They're not as clean.
Well, here's what you said that did make some sense to me, that was interesting. When you say whatever your greatest asset is the one asset you must keep, but whatever you have in abundance, you have to be prepared to get rid of. And it's hard for us to get our heads around thinking of humans as disposable.
Yeah. I'm to be honest with you, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am an amoral pragmatist. If I was running the country, right, and we have people living too long, right, that's what we really have right now, because, you know, modern technology and advances in medicine, right. The problem right now is people are not having kids. Even in the United States, they have low birth rates. Why do you think they got rid of that whole abortion thing? Right? They stopping that abortion thing because white folk are not having kids. They're not having kids. You know what I'm saying? It's not happening, right? So the abortion thing keeps that. In Japan or in these other countries, people are living too long. So if this virus, they didn't make it, if this virus affects those folk, right? And who are the people that travel the most? Think about it. Cruise ships. Most people that take cruises are people that are near retirement, right? You know what I mean? They don't want to fly, but they'll get on a cruise ship. Who was the most affected, right? How did this virus really spread out, really? It wasn't the flying really on planes. It was taking ships and ferries and stuff like that. Like you said, how we travel nowadays, right? The incubation period, sitting there, getting that virus sitting there and stuff like that. You get 700 people on a cruise ship packed in together, going from port to port to port to port. By the time they finish like a 45-day cruise, it done incubated, and then they done moved that and talking to these people in these marketplaces, and then boom, you get an explosion of this contagious virus that they can't get a handle on because it keeps mutating so rapidly that you'll catch it, you won't die from it, but then you don't die from the actual virus, you actually die from the symptoms of the virus of attacking your immune system. AIDS doesn't kill you. It's everything else, because your immune system is stripped, that kills you, right? Like a cut, a common cold can kill you if you don't have any antibodies, right? So this is how dangerous this virus is, and this is how it's going to affect money long term, and where do we go from here?
Here's the thing. As we start to wrap this up, and I want to give everybody some final thoughts, I'll actually start with Wayne again. Let's assume that it is a conspiracy theory. Let's assume everything else. What are we going to do to protect ourselves and the people that we care about and the people that we protect and provide for from getting this? What are some of the things that you guys feel like doing on the ground?
Well, to that question, and to Brother David and Brother DeAndre, thank you for your insight and your input on this conversation. The kids are actually calling it the boomer doomer, I've been told, in reference to wiping out the elderly population. But to your question, YusefWateef, I ultimately think being proactive and being educated about it, opposed to providing out misinformation, is where it starts. I think within our communities, and just broadly, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of innuendos, there's a lot of maybe not, but I think we have to really try to get down to the facts. I think that people are relying on the government, people are relying on their employers, and they're not necessarily relying on themselves because they don't have the tools to be equipped to rely on themselves. And I think that it's compounded by our healthcare issues here. A lot of people don't have adequate health care, things of that nature in the States. So ultimately, I think it just comes back to hygiene. I mean, it's a shame that it takes something like this to get some people, because not all people are adhering to what they should be adhering to. But I definitely think it comes back to just the basics, and we need to try to be more self-sufficient in order to combat these type of things. But I think, Brother David said it, I said it earlier, we've probably all been exposed, or we may all be exposed at this point. And, it may not just be flu season anymore. Maybe it may be coronavirus season. Who knows? And that leads off to the conspiracy theories and things like that. But to try to narrow it down to what you're asking, YusefWateef, I really think being educated, being up on medical advances and things like that, and financially, that's a whole other topic, to try to be financially sound, so when these type of pandemics occur, we're not left out in the open.
It's funny you said that, because tomorrow on the Patreon, like tonight, I'm doing a real ground level prepper with Brother Craig, but about bugging in and what it's like to have the things in your house that you need. But tomorrow, on Sunday, tomorrow, tonight we're doing the prepper on Patreon. Then tomorrow we're doing a investment jamboree. We'll come, a couple of us who talk about investments, money. We're all going to come in and talk about ground level information on getting into financial security. And oh, by the way, Sesame One, check your email. For everybody else, I do hope that you can pop on to watch that. So tonight and tomorrow, we're gonna have some pretty powerful shows on the Patreon. Brother Dave, what are you doing for the people that?
My mother's older. She's totally isolated in her own home, away from everyone. She's got plenty of supplies. She's doing everything via Amazon. My child is out of school. We already have our line of succession, with my child and his mother. If one of us passed, we've already got that all squared away. social distancing, remote working, staying away from people, not doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, not exactly. But what's interesting, and I'm going to say this, and I hope Yusef doesn't get upset, but Yusef is a prepper, and he has been telling me this for years. Get your ass ready. And we all kind of say, man, Yusef is. And you know what? The preppers are right. There's no reason we shouldn't have had water and food for 30 days. There's no reason we shouldn't, if you're in the United States, should have had ammo. All of us should have had a place that we could have left and went to in the hills or in some country somewhere, disconnected. We all knew this was going to happen. I thought it was going to be a war. It turns out to be a pandemic. And so I told you so crowd is right, and I'm guilty. Me not being prepared, I take 100% ownership. If I get through this, if we get through this, everything has changed. No more of chasing these mindless material goals. It's going to be about survival for yourself, your family, and your kids. Because this is just the start. Because wait, the Arctic Ocean has chlamydia now because the damn environment is going crazy. So this is just start with the pandemics. Wait till we have, what was that movie where the Earth froze in like 2 or 3 hours? Wait till that shit happens.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning of it.
Yeah. Day after
tomorrow.
Yeah. Like just to say it like this, what I did with my family is my wife's, she's in England. England's not as bad as everywhere else because of their health system and because of their xenophobia. You know what I'm saying? They quick to kick out somebody that if they think you came from there, they quick to kick you out and bar you. They don't have no qualms on it. They expel pretty much most of the Chinese people that if they get a visa or something, nope, cut them off. You got to go. You know what I'm saying? So the other thing with that is here, my son, he's here in the house, you know what I'm saying? It's not as bad in Japan because of the area that I live. I'm not in Tokyo. I'm kind of in the outside. So, trying to make it easier for him. He's still a kid. He doesn't know any better, but you know what I'm saying? But I keep myself in the house. If I got to do some work, I do some work. I could do it over the internet or something like that. Already had our money set aside because guess what? I was already prepped up since that earthquake, that tsunami thing that happened in 2011. You know what I'm saying? So I already know about the rolling blackouts. I got me a generator with the solar panels that's already locked up, ready to go.
Man, you should be smiling right now.
Oh yeah. I'm
ready to rock and roll. Well, listen, on that note, and by the way, Kuruju said you only need to be right once as a prepper.
Yeah.
Amen.
Hey, you know that old saying, if you're ready, you don't have to get ready. In the bank, and this is what I would tell people. If you don't have a safe in your house,
right,
you need a fireproof safe. You don't need that big one with the knob. You can just get whatever. All the passports stay in that fireproof safe. Everything's in there, but we also have at least $2,000 cash in that safe just in case. Now, the rule of thumb, how many people in your household, you really need at least $1,000 per person.
That's got to be the next show, Yusef, the art of prepping. You got to bring this brother back.
We're definitely going to do that. We're going to do that. I want to do the grassroots ones on boxes of stuff to have in your house. I'm going to do another one on the intangibles, like you said, about the documents and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay.
But anybody who hasn't already, make sure you go to patreon.com, YusefWateef. That's where I'm going to do a lot of the in-depth stuff. It's real technical. And so here you can ask everybody. I don't get the toilet paper hoarding either. I don't know. We talked about that.
I mean, we got bidets.
Yeah, I got that in my house. That's the thing. Like, the last thing.
I say that to say this. Thank you all. For everybody who's watching, catch you on Patreon. I hope everybody got something out of this. Let me back up for a second. Oh my goodness, you've been sitting there the whole time and I didn't see you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry.
I'm good. I got some thought thoughts.
Because when you left, everybody got to talking and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I have some final thoughts.
Go ahead. I'm gonna give you the final thoughts.
Final thoughts is people just know your history. And I'm not talking about on the internet, just reading books and just doing your research and stop just going for the okie doke, because history repeats itself. It's not excused, and don't ignore it. You know, we've been through this before. You know, now we don't have the social media. You know, back then there was no social media, there was no technology, it was word of mouth. And I think people need to go back to historical references instead of just going with the boogeyman concepts, and just do your research, because it's all science. You know, it just is what it is. You know, science is going to do what it has to do. And I think it's where people have to go. And my brother in Japan, I was in the military too, 14 years. Thank you for your service.
Oh, you too, brother. You too.
Yeah. So, but that's my thought on it. You know, people need to go back to critical thought and common sense thinking, and stay off and just use the internet wisely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I hope everybody watching clicks the subscribe button here. If you can jump over to the Patreon with us, we're going to be live there in a few minutes, going over in detail what to have in the house. Love you all, and thank you. Hope everybody has a good night. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Very much.